Can things get any worse over at Morning Joe? Well, it seems so. MSNBC's Morning Joe lost to CNN's News Central in the coveted 25 to 54 age demographic this past week. This is the first time News Central has beaten out Morning Joe among this sought-after group since 2022. Now, the incredible upset comes months after Morning Joe hosts Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough visited Mar-a-Lago, and just weeks after Donald Trump's November election win.
That's the trip that many say started off their decline. The program lost 39% of its audience since Trump's win and 46% among that coveted 25 to 54 demo. That's according to reporting from the Daily Mail. Well,
is it time for heads to roll?
Heads to roll.
Refer to a previous segment.
That's a reference. People who are watching this segment in isolation won't know what we're talking about. Is it time for the guillotine to drop?
Yes. But they may be in trouble.
They may be. I mean,
audience decline for sure.
Yeah, and I mean that demographic is very important in TV because that's how you sell ads, or that's who you sell ads against, essentially. You and I have talked before about the Joe and Mika trip to Mar-a-Lago, and my objection to it, or what I thought was damaging about it, was that it seemed to underscore a kind of dishonesty, really, or a fraudulence, because we had heard from that duo in particular for months, if not years before, that Donald Trump was going to be an absolute danger to American democracy, everything was going to fall apart, he was a dictator in the making, etc. You could still argue that that is true. They did not still argue that that is true. He won the election and off they went to herald a new era of comedy and or maybe comedy as well, but affability and all of that. And I think it just came across as fundamentally fraudulent.
I'm actually not surprised also about them losing out to CNN, which has become more interesting to me in the last couple months. I don't know if that's solely due to my affection for Scott Jennings.
Maybe it is.
It might be, but so based. But they've had other people on in addition to him who have different kinds of sensibilities and perspectives that are more favorable to Trump. And the panel discussions they're having are pretty entertaining. Yeah. And that is, I think, what people in this demographic, to the extent they're going to be watching TV at all in the future, is a dubious prospect. I've basically stopped watching cable news. Like I used to sometimes turn on the TV and just to catch me up on what's going on. I almost never do that now. I still technically have a cable package because I think it would take too much of my time to try to cancel it.
Sure.
So it's available to me.
The
but
power of inertia, Robby. It's too much trouble to change.
I almost never watch, and I'm smack dab in the middle of that demographic. So they're going to have to pivot to streaming and social and take a page out of Rising's books.
Well, exactly.
But that involves discussion with interesting and provocative and spicy and contrarian internet-based personalities. I feel like the Morning Joe brand is so boomer and probably a little bit younger than boomer, and very associated with the Biden years, right? They were the number 1 and 2 Biden boosters of all. They interviewed him multiple times. He saw that as a friendly landing page when he had to, for instance, address the sexual misconduct accusations from Tara Reade. He chose Mika Brzezinski to be the foil for that because he knew she would be gentle, which is fine, but you know what? That time period is over. Yeah. The Biden brand has not aged well. He's not a popular departing foreign president. At least, Obama and Clinton could claim that. Yeah. Biden really can't. And so, where do they go from here? They've not figured out. They could become more Trumpy, but they're not going to go. Right. You can't. Never go half Trump.
Sure. No, I think that's actually a good
Although
point.
If that's true, I'm pretty doomed, I guess.
Well, I guess you're in the slightly Trump skeptical libertarian space. But look, in relation to Morning Joe and cable news generally, there is, to your point about age, like people I think perhaps who don't follow the media business so closely, don't necessarily recognize how old the cable news audience is. The median cable news viewer is like 65 or 66.
Yes.
It is an increasingly old audience, and people who are younger do not get their news by that means anymore. And so that's obviously an existential problem for cable news. More streaming services are coming on board, even from the big broadcasters. NBC and ABC and CBS all have that. But they haven't figured out how to thread that needle yet, and this is just one more example.
And it's kind of remarkable that they haven't figured it out because they have lots of money, they have nice studios and lighting, and they're very good at producing
television.
Right. They're not it's almost as if they're not as good at identifying talent or the kinds of talent that appeal to younger people. And also, we're witnessing this dynamic. Like Megyn Kelly just launched her own production company.
Don Lemon, our old friend.
Don Lemon. Even people who've left some of these organizations have gone off to do more interesting things on their own, whether it be Substack or Rumble or just on X itself. We're entering an era where the individual talent is so much more important than the brand, and I guess that's difficult if you are the brand.
Exactly.
To grapple with that reality that you should, if you really want to maximize revenue and success, you should be the junior partner in the relationship with the talent. But that's just not something these old fossils want to deal with.
Well, and it's also the case that it is, I think, common across cable news networks, be it MSNBC or Fox, where there is the singing to the choir, preaching to the choir stuff, where it is very predictable. I mean, one of the reasons why I never watch almost any sort of primetime cable news of any hue is that I know what people are going to say. And actually, I watch a little bit more during daytime, where I think it tends to be more news coverage. So I think that is a problem because, yes, it caters to a specific niche, but it also turns a lot of people off.
Well, we'll continue to follow their rising or sinking fortunes. But that does it for us today on our show, which is also called Rising. We really appreciate you tuning in. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we're now available anywhere you can listen to podcasts. It is Thursday, right? Which means I'm done for the week, but Niall will be back.
Back with our friend Amber Duke.
Tomorrow with Amber. You won't want to miss it. I'm sure it'll be another great show. See you later.